about you. I've been thinking about you.
Cool. Hi everyone. So first of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Exposing Cruelty and the whole team who have invited us here today to do our talk. We're really grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say a thank you to all the other speakers already and the musicians. Some incredible talks already, I'm sure you've all heard and you'll all agree with me, were very powerful and impactful, and hopefully we can follow the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're Vegan Muscle. So Vegan Muscle is a gym brand that was born from animal rights. So my background was a bodybuilder and gym and athletes. When we went vegan, we realised that there was no gym brand specific with a vegan message that would perform as gym wear would in a gym. So we created Vegan Muscle Gym Wear, and you'll find it at veganmusclegymwear.com. We're also on YouTube as animal rights activists. So you'll find us on Vegan Muscle Outreach on YouTube, where you'll see our daily activism, our street activism, our debate tables, sort of street outreach that we organise and do, and other public talking events where we attend as well. So that's who we are, and I'll hand you over to Mel now to start our speech.
Hey! So I'm going to start off with 3 questions, and I want you to be loud with the answers, okay? So the first question is, whose milk is dog milk for? Dog puppies, yeah!
Hey.
The second question, whose milk is cat milk for? Yes,
Yeah.
kittens! Now this is the hardest question of all. Whose milk is cow's milk for?
Yeah.
Cows, baby cows. You're absolutely right. Raise your hand if you have ever consumed cow's milk. Yeah. Well, we don't look like a bunch of baby cows, do we? So how the hell has someone conditioned us all to think we are baby cows and need to be drinking the breast milk from a cow? Steve, it all started with someone, right? One person.
Yep.
Must have seen a cow one day and thought, I'm going to start drinking from their udder now. Like, how weird is that? It's mental, right?
Yeah.
But there is one thing that the dairy industry is really, really, really good at. And that is propaganda and mass brainwashing. Because we do not go around drinking the breast milk from cats. Or drinking the breast milk from rats. Because that's weird, right? But it is just as weird to be drinking the breast milk from a cow. I had no clue what went on in this industry until I come across a debate with an awesome activist called Joey Carbstrong. Does anybody know Joey? Woo!
Everyone knows Joey.
And he was debating a member of the public about the dairy industry. And you can imagine, for somebody who thought cows produce milk because they eat grass, it was a big, big shock to find out that cows only produce milk because they are mothers. And I could not believe what I was about to see. The dairy industry is beyond horrific. And it starts with forcible impregnation to the mother cow. She carries her baby for 9 months, just like we would as a human. But the difference is her baby, when she is born, or he is born, will be stolen from her. And she will do everything she can to protect her baby. She will try and run after the farmer taking her baby away. And she will cry out for weeks after her baby, just like we would. Can you imagine someone taking your baby away from you? And this will happen around 5 times on average to her. If she gives birth to a baby boy, the boys are taken and they are murdered. And I say murdered because that is what it is. That is the correct terminology to use. But again, the dairy industry like to come up with things like humane slaughter, which translates to humane murder. But if you think of yourself as the victim, would there be a humane way to murder you if you don't want to die?
Nope.
If the mother gives birth to a female, she is taken away and put into isolation. And then she faces the same fate as her mother. until she is no longer considered profitable to the industry, and she will also be taken to the same slaughterhouse as her brother, when she is around 5 years old, and she will also be murdered. People think the dairy industry is an innocent thing, but it really isn't. And do you know how old these mothers are killed at? Do you know the average age?
Age they're killed at, or how long they live for?
Look how they're killed at.
So they're killed at around 5 years old.
5 years old. And how long do they naturally live for?
They should live to around 25, 27 years on average.
Yeah. So I question, why did it take me 26 years to find out the truth? I was paying for dairy, and no one ever told me the truth until a brave activist went out and exposed this industry. And I saw that, and I changed on the spot, and I went vegan because that is the least that I could have done.
Yeah, definitely. Like Mel says, we're conditioned, right? So like we're conditioned to drink cow's milk, and that condition is real, and we've all been probably part of that. At least the majority of us here have been part of that conditioning. And if you can think back to before you sort of realised and went vegan, we used to view animals and animals' secretions as products, right? Like you go to the supermarket and you see chicken breasts in a nice cellophane wrapper, and you view it as a product that you eat, and you view eggs and milks as products that you drink and consume. And it's strange because it's obviously identifiable that when you want to stop harming animals, you stop eating their bodies, right? Like it's a really obvious thing. But everyone thinks that innocent byproducts from animals, like eggs, for example, from hens, there can't be any exploitation attached to eggs. You know, a hen's going to lay an egg regardless. So what is the problem with me eating it? And this is why you get a lot of people go vegetarian off the cuff, thinking that they're doing enough. I'll explain to you why. Mel's explained the dairy industry really well, but I want to explain to you why the exploitation of hens for eggs is just as cruel. So I don't know if you know much about eggs, but they all come from hatcheries. Whether you look at free-range hens, whether you look at battery hens, they'll all come from a hatchery. In a hatchery, when the chicks are hatched, they'll sex them, male and female. What do you reckon they do to the male hens? Well, the male hens, the male chicks.
Male chicks, put them in a big blender.
A big blender. They call it a macerator because, again, it's a word used to not actually describe what it is. But if you've ever seen it, it's a big open blender, and they'll find themselves in there. Majority of the time, they'll also be gassed and suffocated in bags, but they're classed as a waste product, just like the male calves are, because they don't produce eggs and they don't produce milk for the calf situation. They're just killed, day old, same day that they're hatched. When you look at the exploitation from the females, again, similar to the dairy industry, the females will go off to be exploited. Now, these hens will have been bred to lay around 330 to 350 eggs a year. They should lay 12 to 15. Can you imagine the strain on their bodies? When you think of eggs and egg-laying hens, I'm sure, again, before vegan, we all paid a little bit more for free range. Hands up if you paid more for free range. I did. Thought you were doing a better thing because we're compassionate towards animals, right? It's only when you go vegan that you realise that free range is just a term used by the consumer to feel better about paying for something quite horrific. Free range hens are still 15,000 hens in a big barn with their beaks cut off, and they'll all see inside of a slaughterhouse at around 18 months when their egg laying starts to reduce. So these are just a couple of things why I want to make a strong point that vegetarianism isn't enough. You know, people aspire to be vegan. They think vegan is this really hard thing to do. It's actually a non-action. Just don't pay for animal abuse. It's really easy. We're talking a lot about diet, but I really want to make a point of noting that veganism isn't a diet, right? It's an ethical position where we try and reduce harm to animals as far as practically possible. So we also must consider zoos, aquariums, entertainment, where animals are literally captive. They go crazy, they're confined into these spaces, and people will make money off the backs of their pure existence just by observing them, with no thought or consideration to the individual having a subjective experience of their life. Could you imagine? We all know how bad it was in lockdown, right? In our own homes, in our own environments, we were all going crazy at home. Can you imagine having your whole life in an existence, for example, in a zoo? And can you imagine having your life where people bet on you to race for entertainment? Or even worse, paying for your skin to wear as a fashion accessory. It sounds weird, right? Once you go vegan, you look back. Could you imagine paying for somebody's skin to wear it for fashion? It sounds like something from a horror movie.
Yeah.
But these are all things that we must highlight. And the reason why we shouldn't aspire to be vegan, it shouldn't be difficult. It should be that first stepping stone, because all these industries exploit these innocent animals having a subjective experience of their own lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And these industries, like Steve said, are all covered with like torture and murder. And I apologise if I get a bit upset in a minute, because I'm going to talk about something recently that we went to. We went to a vigil, and I was standing outside of a slaughterhouse. And the bell, we're waiting for the bell. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
And it was really surreal, because I witnessed the individuals going into the slaughterhouse, the victims, and I saw this trailer shaking, and I thought, what's happening? And when I looked inside, there was a cow just shaking so much the whole trailer was shaking. There was animals foaming at the mouth, crying and fighting to escape, because they know exactly what is happening. They react just like we would if we know we were going inside there to be killed. These animals came from all different places, like factory farms, local, small farms. But it doesn't matter where they come from, because they all end up inside of a slaughterhouse. I had eye contact with that 16-month-old bull as he was being taken in. And I felt so helpless as he was looking at me for help. And I could do nothing in that moment apart from film and share. And then it dawned on me that I've not always been vegan. And because of my choices before I was vegan, I had victims just like him going in. I had victims crying out in pain, crying for their babies, being mutilated, put into gas chambers and burning from the inside out, and ultimately being murdered because of me and my choices. I didn't realise at the time how powerful my choices were, but now I do. And now that with the knowledge that I know, I changed and I went vegan. And I also realised that I have the power of freedom, something that the animals don't have. And with my freedom, I will use my power for their freedom. I will fight for him and her and him and these over here. I will do everything I can. I'll promise the animals I will never ever give up until we have animal liberation. And this is quite poignant, because if you're not vegan here today, you also have so much power with your money not to pay for these industries, not to be part of this cruel, barbaric system. You can stop right now, and that is powerful. And the other thing that you can do when you go vegan, you can stand in front of these animals like we are right now, and you can be the person protecting them from anybody, from the oppressor. There are so many people out there paying for these individuals to be tortured and killed. And some of them don't even know the truth. So make sure you tell them the truth. You don't have to be horrible to them. You can just be kind, or you can just be direct. But never, ever not say something because it's easier for you. Because it can feel uncomfortable, but nothing will ever feel uncomfortable as it is for the animals going in to be killed.
Yeah, well said. So we've identified there the first part of that speech, okay, there's injustices. And I think we'd all agree that it's an injustice what happens to animals on all these levels. So, you know, like what Dan was pointing out earlier, so now what? You know, is that just the end of the credits? Do you just go and look up yourself? No, it's easy what you do next, right? We identify us in injustice. How do we stop an injustice? The first thing you do to stop an injustice is, if you're contributing towards that injustice, the first bit's easy. You just stop contributing towards animals being exploited, mutilated, tortured, raped, murdered, experimented on, skinned alive. It's easy. Just stop paying for it yourself. That's the first thing you do. It's a non-action. The second thing we do is you find your form of activism. The world needs vegans. Animals need activists. It's really, really important, this second stage. We need activists. If you look at any injustice throughout history, suffragettes, women's rights, gay rights, look at any injustice. We have only achieved systemic change from grassroots activists, bold enough, brave enough, have the courage to stand up against the majority, even when they're the minority and their voice is not as loud. Them brave people that have stood up and in front of these oppressors and put the victims behind them has achieved systemic change. You don't have to break down the doors of MBR and liberate animals. You don't have to go and do street outreach like we do. You don't have to do any form of activism you don't feel comfortable in doing. But what I will say is when you start to become an activist, you'll be surprised. If you think of doing something for the strength of yourself, it's harder than if you keep the victim in mind. And if you keep the victim in mind and you have it for the strength of the animals, you'll be amazed in what you can do. A lot of people familiar with street activism will know the whys and the hows of veganism. We say it all the time, right? Why should we be vegan? Because we're against animal abuse. How are we vegan? That will always come second. Take that same why and how and put it towards activism. Why should I be an activist? Because unless I stand up and take personal accountability like I did when I was paying for these injustices, I need to take personal accountability for trying to be a solution to these injustices. How do I do that? That will always come second, and you'll always find it, but it's really important that we do. I just want to end our little bit here with 3 things that have really stuck with me over the last 2.5 years of being an activist. And the first thing that stuck with me, I heard a speech, and in that speech, the guy said, peace is not just the absence of war, it's the presence of justice. And that really stuck with me, and I thought that's just so true. It's just so true. And it's down to us to be that presence of justice. We can't have peace without that presence of justice. The second thing was Albert Einstein saying those that have the privilege to know have the duty to act. Some of you here today may never have come across any of the messages that are around this event this weekend. Maybe the first time you've heard some of these industries and what happens behind these closed doors. But now you have the privilege of knowledge. So now we have that duty to act. Again, I'm not telling you to go and be a street activist. I'm not telling you how to be an activist. What I'm saying is I'm encouraging you for the sake of the animals to be an activist. Otherwise, we're just observation. The third thing I'm going to leave you with today with our speech is something that I heard recently at Vegan Campout, and it's from a brilliant activist called Cliff Grant. If you haven't seen Cliff Grant, then please go to YouTube and search Cliff Grant. And he finished his speech at Vegan Campout with something that really stuck in my mind. You may be someone of faith, you may be someone of religion, that's personal to you. But this is a myth that he heard and he passed on, and it stuck with me. And it goes like this. When we die from this life and we move on to the next, wherever we're going, the legend says that we will cross over on a bridge of a rainbow. And on that rainbow will be every animal that you have ever encountered or come into contact with in your lifetime. And they will be the ones to decide whether you cross that bridge or not. And it stuck with me, and I'd like to share that with you today because I found that quite powerful. So hopefully that's the end of our speech. Hopefully you took something from it. We'll be around all day today. And it'd be really great to talk to some people.
Yeah, if anyone want to be an activist or don't know how to be, just come over and find us, and we can help you out.
We got 5 minutes. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask?
Do we have 5 minutes?
What's the best thing about being vegan?
That you don't pay for animal abuse, and animals do not suffer for you personally.
Yeah, everything.
Any other questions?
Dan.
Were you bodybuilding before you were vegan?
Yes.
You went vegan. You see much difference?
Masses of difference. Great question. So from a personal journey, I was a bodybuilder before vegan. For example, I used to eat 30 eggs a day. I'd eat 6 steaks a day, turkey steaks a day. I was eating masses of animal flesh and secretions. I had really bad digestive issues. I had really bad joint pain. I was suffering quite a lot. We went vegan for ethics. So like Mel said, we was watching a Joey Carstrong debate and we saw the dairy industry, and that was enough. And I truly thought at that moment, bodybuilding's done. That's it. No more training. But I didn't care because I saw what I was paying for or effectively voting for with my money. I saw it and I was against it. If that was the end of bodybuilding for me, then cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just so happened that, and this is really interesting, it wasn't like a long-term effect. 2 to 3 days, all of a sudden the digestive issues cleared up, the recovery was better, I was getting better vasodilation, better pumps in the gym, my energy levels had increased, I could train harder for longer, my distended stomach had come in, recovery, it was just, I can't say a negative at all for it, it was just layers and layers of positivity. And it was an even more of a, why didn't no one tell me this earlier? Like, and that's again part of the reason for vegan muscle. I remember being 16 going into a gym, and for me bodybuilding, I picked out the big guy. I walked up to him. I said, "I'm Steve, and I want to look like you. What do I do?" And he said, "You need to eat these people, and you need to eat what comes out of these people." And I did. What I really want is for the next person to walk into a gym. It's just to see a vegan muscle logo, just to see a message like the strong protect the weak or compassion is strength. And just to say, hey, like that person is doing a triathlon. I want to do a triathlon and he's vegan. Like, wow, maybe I'll talk to that person. Oh, that guy's a bodybuilder. That's a bodybuilding vegan. That's mad. I'll go talk to him. And it could potentially save hundreds of thousands of lives if we get that message to people in an environment which is typically non-vegan at the moment. If we get that message out there in a positive way, we could save thousands of lives, and it could be so impactful for change for the animals.
And it's a great way as well, because a lot of people think that vegan muscle is about health and things like that, but it's just a benefit and only a benefit. It's purely about ethics and animal rights. And a little win for me when I went vegan too. I know I'm not as strong as him, but I could not do a pull-up before I was vegan. Now I can do a one-arm pull-up. So I was like, yes!
Prove it.
No, I'll do a video for you later. But it's true, I promise.
Cool. Any other questions, guys? Yeah.
Question from my son. He wants to know what advice would you have for a teenager who wants to go into activism?
Super.
That's such
First
a good
of all,
I love that. You're awesome.
absolutely awesome that you want to get into activism as a teenager, and it's just really encouraging to see like activism coming up throughout, like from younger generations coming up.
We met a guy at Camp Out recently. He's about 15. And he created social media, like I think his thing is Vegan Daily on Instagram. He doesn't have to have his name on there or anything, but he just shares other people's posts on his platform and on reels and things, and just the reach will like go mental. So you can start by doing that, sharing other people's posts and things. If you feel comfortable, maybe go and do street outreach. You can just start by holding a TV or giving out leaflets, stickering, wearing a t-shirt. There are so many things you can do, and I'd also say that once you start, you then kind of find what's next. So I started really scared, holding a sign in the street, shaking. That's all I could do at the time, but I knew I needed to do something. 6 months later, I was in the middle of our town on a megaphone. That's something I'd never thought I'd do. So yeah, just start with something. And I think social media is really powerful because you don't just speak to one person, it goes to thousands of people. So yeah.
Another good thing to do as well is to YouTube a lot of the current activists. Watch Carnism Debunked. You've got Joey Carbstrong, Earthing Ed. I hear them vegan muscle outreach guys do some stuff now and again. But go onto YouTube and just watch how activists will talk to the public. You'll realise that there's mainly maybe 10 to 15 generic kickbacks. That once you learn the responses to them questions, you just get more and more confident in how you can deliver that message, and then you find the most efficient way for you delivering that message. And it'd be really good as well to start with maybe group activism. Like a lot of activists start with like Anonymous for the Voiceless, We the Free, We Stand for the Animals, where you can reach out to them on their social media platforms, go along to an outreach where you'll have an organizer who can sort of take you under the wing for your first outreach. And as your confidence grows, like Mel says, you find your route. And always message us on socials. It will come through to us. If we can help,
Muscle Gym Wear, just
we'll
message us.
always help if you need, like, if you feel like that's beneficial, we're there to help as well, mate. So
George Martin here, Conism Debunked, has got a website with all of the anti-vegan questions and answers, which is so useful. So you can always like just copy and paste to like your friends and stuff. They're all on there.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. It's been really cool talking to everybody. We'll be like around today. Please come and say hi. I'd love to meet as many of you as possible. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank
have a
you.
great rest of the festival.